Hello everyone, Dan speaking, and thanks for tuning in. So this year I completed my first ever full distance triathlon, the inaugural Ironman in Hamburg, Germany. There was one question that popped up very frequently after the race, and that's why I thought, why not put together this video and answer it here. Dan, how much did you actually train for your first ever Ironman? Let's look into it. My training plan consisted of 24 weeks, a race Ironman Hamburg in August. I started my training in February, and given that it was my first ever full distance triathlon, I wasn't really experienced in season planning, but I knew for sure that I want to do a half Ironman race close before my race day. So I chose Ironman Staffordshire because I live in London. That was very easy to get to. I also did a half marathon, but other than that, half of the year, guys, and this is why I'm writing down the number 46%, we're actually occupied thinking about the A race. And if you're new to this channel is actually all about my journey to the Ironman. So I wouldn't say it was only 24 weeks, but you can click on all the video icons that you see over here and on my channel on the vlog. I spent the last 2 years working towards my goal, finishing that Ironman here. A quick note on my training plan. There is a dedicated video that I put together, which you can see on the top right, how much do I train for my first Ironman, which also explains my background, and I feel that's very important if you look at videos like that, because we are all different and the entry levels differ, so you find which races had I done before. Check out the link below. Anyway, my training plan, I picked one from Matt Fitzgerald, using Training Peaks, and the target was to do sub 12 hours. Another link that you can see over here is my Athlinks profile, so you see if you want to look, my other times, for marathons or half marathons or 10K, you can find in the Athlinks profile. Alright, let's have a first look at the numbers. I completed Ironman Hamburg in 10 hours and 42 minutes and 39 seconds, which I'm absolutely pleased with, full stop. The average weekly training time, and I'm hoping that's a number that you can relate to, is 10 hours and 25 minutes. My longest or hardest, toughest, not from an intensity, just from a time point of view, was 14 hours and 33 minutes in week 18. The longest swim workout that I've done was 1 hour and 1 minute in week 16. My longest bike, in terms of time spent, was 6 hours and 18 minutes in week 22. And the longest run was 2 hours and 25 minutes in week 21. When people asked me about the training, they were also interested in the distance. Did I actually train the entire distance before the race? I mean, the short answer is no. If you look at that chart over here, my longest swim was 3 kilometers, 800 meters, 900 meters short of the full distance. The longest bike was 105 miles. That is quite close to the full distance, which is 169 kilometers in week 22. And the longest run was 70.4 miles. And yeah, that's quite a bit off, obviously, to a full marathon. But those are my longest workouts in each sport. Let's have a look at the total distances, shall we? When it comes to swimming, I spent in total in those 24 weeks 121 kilometers. Again, absolute numbers, that's why I'm putting the weekly averages. 5 kilometers a week, 5,510 yards. On the bike I spent, it's a bit bigger number, 3,729 kilometers or 2,317 miles, which makes an average of about 155 kilometers or 96.5 miles a week. And on the run, I did run in those 24 weeks almost 1,000 kilometers, 570 miles, as you can see, which makes an average of 23.75 miles or 38 kilometers. And I'm super curious, guys, to hear your thoughts about those weekly averages. Do you think they're high, they're low? What are you doing? So please leave your thoughts in the comments below, that would be awesome. Last one on looking at all the 3 disciplines combined is the ratio that I've spent. So around 50% of the time spent was on the bike. You see 129 hours. Swim 40 hours, which just make the smallest chunk, which is 15%, and then 80 hours, 31% on the run. So if we have a look at the training plan structure, you can see the different phases based build, peak, and then the race. My training plan consisted, each block had like 4 weeks, with like week 4 of a reduced intensity, and it was, as you can see, gradually increasing like towards the race day, and you see like the C and the B trophy, that was Gothenburg half and the Ironman in Staffordshire. So for those of you that are familiar with training peaks and training stress score, CTL values, I entered my training in February with a CTL of 74. For those of you that aren't familiar, if you want to get like a 30 seconds explanation, if you run for 1 hour at your threshold pace, that's the pace that you can maintain for 1 hour. If you do that for every day in 24 weeks, you would enter your race like with a CTL of 100. That's the weighted average for the last 40 days. So a workout 1 hour at threshold pace gives you 100 points. If you do that every day, you have a weighted average of 100. Not saying that this is recommended, this is not the way you want to do it, but that should explain it in a nutshell. So when I entered Ironman Hamburg, my CTL was 110, and in that curve you see, you know, that it wasn't like a flat line, that I didn't do like 110 all the time, but you slowly increase that, and you saw like these blocks of 4 weeks. So you increase the intensity, then you have 1 week where you see like these small dips, and then you go up again. So you gradually, slowly work your way up, in my case, like towards the 110. There is one video that I found during my training which I thought is very, very interesting. It puts your CTL in comparison like with your Ironman finishing time. If you look at this one here, they say, this is a video from Training Peaks and WKO+, they say if you enter your Ironman at a CTL of 110, you can expect a finish time of 10:45. My chip time was 10:42, my CTL 110. That is not too shabby, if you ask me. If you have any comparison values, if you use Training Peaks, if you've done an Ironman, please let me know. I'd love to see if, I mean, I've only got my data here, but I'd love to see other numbers and where they've got that one from here. In this chart, the duration by week, you see again like my average like of 10.5 hours. You see how the time spent slowly increased, like leading towards peaking at the A race, and you see the dark blue bits are actually overachieving, like doing more than my training plan suggested, and the gray bits missing out in terms of time spent, not on stress level. We're going to look at that in a second. And you see towards the end I was missing out a little bit more, but you can also see very nicely how, you know, week 4 was like a reduced time, and how it's slowly increasing towards peaking at my A race. Here's the same chart for the 24 weeks, but looking at the TSS, the training stress, on a weekly basis, and you can see here as well very nicely the 3 weeks increasing intensity, decrease intensity, and then next week a bit more, and then you peak at your race day. Alright, let's look at the individual stats, and given that the Ironman starts with the swim, we are starting with the swimming stats here as well. I finished the race in 1 hour and 17 minutes. And I've already mentioned it at the beginning, my average time per week that I spent swimming was 1 hour and 40 minutes. Average distance 5 kilometers, longest swim 3 kilometers. And you see that was actually the bit like the overachieved blue bit towards the end. That gave me enough confidence. That was an open water swim. When you look then, you're good, you know, for the Ironman swim. And swimming has definitely been like the sport that I picked up the last, and so I had a lot of work to do, and you see more gray bits, more underachieved than overachieved, but still, yeah, I think, you know, okay. Indoor-outdoor ratio, I thought that might be interesting for you as well, is most of the time indoor. I live in the UK, so the outdoor season only starts later in the season, but I did really enjoy the outdoor swims much more than the indoor swims. Yeah, and I did 3 sessions a week most of the time, and yeah, in total just, you know, 5 kilometers a week. Next, we're going to look at the cycling stats. I finished Ironman Hamburg in 5 hours and 27 minutes. Very pleased with that. Average time per week, 5 hours, 24 minutes. 96.5 miles average distance. Longest ride, 105 miles, which was at the Prudential 100 here in London. worked out really well because it was just 3 weeks before the race. And you see over here much less underachieved, a few more dark purple ones, and slowly increasing the intensity like towards my A race. So I'm quite pleased with that. And if you're interested in the indoor-outdoor ratio, I spent more time training indoors on my Wahoo Kicker than outdoor. I just love indoor cycling training, guys, to be honest. Last but not least, let's have a look at the running. I finished my Ironman marathon in 3 hours, 43 minutes and 43 seconds, which is absolutely amazing given that my marathon PB entering Ironman Hamburg was 3:27. So I was like, if I do sub 4 hours, I'd be amazed. My average time per week was 3 hours and 20 minutes. Longest run, I mentioned that earlier, 70.4 miles. Average 38 kilometers, and my indoor-outdoor ratio was, I train most of the time outdoors, and the 10% were when I went to the Emirates and it was just way too hot. And you can see here as well, like on the charts, that I have more overachieved than underachieved. That is also related to that I really wanted to make sure that I get enough exercise on the run, because the run felt like the most unpredictable part of the Ironman. You can kind of like get a feeling where you're on the swim and on the bike with the power, but never ever do you train, you know, swim then followed by that much of a bike ride that you know how you'd feel. So I made sure I did enough runs, and I can just say, you know, I'm very, very pleased. So we've reached the last slide, guys, and this is one that's very important, like, to me to share with you guys, because it kind of like summarizes like these 24 weeks of training. And we're looking at this performance management chart here, which is a chart that Training Peak provides, and it looks at your fitness level, the CTL level, in this instance I think over the last 2 years. And the biggest change that you see over here is the left bit versus the right bit, the unstructured, as I called it, versus structured. What does that mean? Unstructured means like the time leading up to my 24-week training plan. I was training 3 weeks, 3 days of swim, 3 days of running and 3 days of cycling on a weekly basis. But not in that way, you know, that I did like the 4 blocks and you slowly increase your intensity. That was pretty much, you see, it's kind of like a flat profile if you compare that to a cycling profile. And then when I started a 24-week training plan, you see how it's a mountain shape, right? So I was all focused on increasing my CTL value. The peak is this 110 that I had when I entered Ironman Hamburg. And yeah, that really helped me, you know, get the confidence, you know, that I'm on the right track, that I am peaking when I enter Ironman Hamburg. And yeah, I haven't felt better, you know, ever than doing like this very structured training. So this is something, you know, that really helped me in working with Training Peaks and that training plan. If you look at the last bit, you actually see after Ironman Hamburg I did Ironman 70.3 Turkey. So I had this decline and then worked my way up again, and that was my last race. There's a video of that as well on my channel. With that being said, guys, I do hope you enjoyed, you liked that video, it was of value for you. Hope it answered the questions, how much I actually trained. If you've got any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Until then, I have signed up. By the time I'm recording this, this is off season. I'm doing my second full distance Ironman in Sweden, Kalmar, next year. So if you wanna follow my journey, make sure to subscribe to that channel. And with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and happy training, happy doing whatever you are up to. Bye, guys.